Yolanthe Gabri, and I'm the director of Ruby Assembly. We're a social media agency that's based in Melbourne, Australia. Today, I have a fabulously clickbaity video for you, which is about horror stories of social media. And let me tell you, I have seen a few because I've been in this category for 14 years. I think that this is a precautionary tale, or several tales in this case, and I'm hoping that if you feel like you are doing any of the things that the misguided individuals in my stories have done, that you quickly amend course. So the first example is actually a really recent one, and it's probably one of the most nefarious versions of social media fraud that I have dealt with previously. It involved a boutique medical practice of clients who approached me initially to do social media content for them. I came back to them with a very strategic piece which involved some thought and engagement with the process of elevating their brand, which is what they had come to me to do. I think ultimately, in the short term, they might have wanted a bit of a ROI, cheap and quick solution that another party offered them. Word to the wise, if it's cheap and quick and it's social media, it's shit. But by the by, anyway, so they went ahead, and then I started seeing these ads for their practice come up that were deleterious to their brand. They featured images which were inappropriate. They focused on bottom of the barrel stuff in terms of pricing, which again was not part of their strategy. If their strategy was about high turnover, low cost for service, the artwork wouldn't have been okay, but the approach might have been. But in this case, both the artwork was damaging to the brand and the actual approach to marketing their brand was way off what they had said they wanted to do. So I approached them and I said, look, I've seen this content. This is concerning to me for several reasons. Whether you use me or someone else, what is going on right now is not very healthy for your brand. Anyway, I hear back from them a couple of weeks later, and they have been seriously gamed by an organisation that said they specialised in social media just for their category, and they made them all the promises under the earth about return on investment. Again, promises for return on investment and social media, that is a giant red flag. If someone's making you promises in social media, they do not have the balls to have a frank and transparent conversation with you about expectations in this category. They had effectively been paying top dollar for these ads to be served to an audience that the stats showed actually wasn't locally based in Australia. In the process of running these ads for 2 or 3 weeks, they had 50 leads that they could see from the campaign, and the 5 leads that came in were people that they considered not a good match financially for their business. And in some cases, they found these individuals actually frightening for their staff. The bottom line in this horror story of social media is that there are organisations out there who will take big bucks from you. They'll promise you absolutely the world in terms of return on investment for sales-led e-com on social media, and they will actually pay people to come out as leads. They won't ultimately purchase your product, but at the end of that month they'll be able to say, oh well, you got 5 visits. The fact that they didn't turn into customers, that's really more to do with you than anything. That is an extremely dangerous and I think fraudulent practice. So that's my number one horror story. That's the most frightening thing I've ever heard in 14 years, I'd say. The second horror story is really about digital hygiene. And I've seen this across a variety of different clients. It usually stems from not taking social media particularly seriously. It's seen as an afterthought, or it's given to a person within the organisation who doesn't have a comms background or a marketing background. They're just kind of lumped with social media because they're a junior, or because they're seen as a young person who understands the TikTok. And it doesn't mean that they have any understanding of the brand language, whether it's visual or copy, that needs to be engaged for the development and design of that business in the social space. And when they leave the business, they take passwords with them for Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, also CRMs. Often when we come into an organisation, there can be just a litany of lost access to really important assets like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And the recovery process for those assets is incredibly difficult and time costly. Facebook or Meta, they don't really care about you. They don't have the time to care about you because there's so many millions and millions of customers around the world. And if you lose your access to your accounts, getting it back is incredibly hard. So I would recommend prioritising the passwords, having them under lock and key in something like LastPass, so you feel a sense of security around those assets, because they are worth real money to your business if you're spending time designing media for your social media suite. And the last horror story that I wanted to share is still related to digital hygiene, but it can occur really frequently when a business is sold. So say two business owners have decided to come to the end of the line and they're wanting to liquidate their asset if it's no longer functional. In any case, the asset is going to be sold. This is again a permissions and admin access thing, but we have been privy to the case of a business transaction between two parties that were no longer getting on, and there'd been a process of liquidation for the asset, and one of the parties had effectively destroyed the social media suite of the brand. The reasons for them doing this is, could be various. It could be anything from being a malign bugger to just having literally no social media skills and wanting to disconnect themselves from assets, and in the course of doing so, destroying those assets. In any case, those assets are valuable, and clawing back money from a liquidator when you've already paid for an asset, which should include social media assets, can be incredibly tricky as well and costly. So those are 3 examples of horror stories. One relates to scams and believing false promises from people who are in the space. 2, it comes from losing access to accounts because of poor digital hygiene within a brand and not taking social media very seriously. And the last one is actually around being very fastidious with access to social media accounts during the process of business sale or liquidation. I could talk for hours about this stuff, and in fact I often do. I have a workshop for professional services coming up in late October. If you'd like to attend, it's virtual, and I believe it's on October 26, 2022. Details are at rubyassembly.com.au. I'm Yolanthe Gabri. My business is Ruby Assembly, and we focus on more than likes in your social media. Okay.